in the Hebrew language press, people are sort of losing their mind about this and saying, Netanyahu, is so desperate to sort of distract from, his other narratives that he's even willing to put forward stories from quote unquote anti-Israel news outlets. But this is very serious reporting.
I think what's so fascinating to me about this entire story is how the Israelis are currently feuding amongst themselves over whether Epstein was an Israeli asset. But the US media is ignoring all of this work.
Well, because the corporate media in the United States is controlled by a foreign country, and that foreign country, of course, is Israel. That's why they're not covering the fact that Jeffrey Epstein, it is now proven, had very cozy, close ties to the Israeli government. Even Benjamin Netanyahu is boosting that story, believe it or not, but not for the reasons that you would believe or think. Now, Jeremy Scahill, of course, one of the founders of Drop Site News, was discussing this insane fight that's taking place in the Israeli government and among, Israeli politicians. Before I give you the details, your 2 cents, Cenk?
Yeah, so really interesting cast of characters here, because Steve Bannon apparently was very good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and he's involved in this story. But meanwhile, as everybody's been saying here, there's a raging debate in Israel about who put Epstein up to it. Meanwhile, here in America, they're like, that's anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Then is all of Israel anti-Semitic?
I guess so.
Okay, so you see what liars our corporate media are, Anna.
So, just to recap real quick, so Israel's current prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, boosted reporting that exposes Jeffrey Epstein's close relationship with the Israeli government. And now he's actually under fire from a different former Israeli prime minister who claims that Epstein had no connections to Mossad. No. Like, hey, idiot. Remember, we're supposed to be keeping this secret. You're not supposed to be making this public, but Netanyahu couldn't help himself. So on Friday, Netanyahu posted the following Jacobin piece without any comment. Let's take a look at a screenshot. So the piece is titled, Jeffrey Epstein claimed to have meddled in Israel's elections. Okay, so the Jacobin piece relies on reporting from Drop Site News. They've now published several articles using information from the Epstein files that were leaked or released to the public by the House Oversight Committee. Those documents show specific connections between Epstein and the Israeli government, including various deals that Epstein brokered on behalf of the Israeli government. So the Jacobin piece in particular mentions Drop Site News' extensive reporting on Epstein's connections to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Mossad. The reporting again relies on these unveiled documents from the House Oversight Committee, and the article itself has to do with the emails between Epstein and Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon is implicated in all of this as well, and you guys should just be fully aware of that. So back in 2019, when Netanyahu was serving as prime minister, Ehud Barak had launched another run for Prime Minister of Israel. At that point, Epstein's emails with Bannon made clear that Epstein was playing a role in, Barak's comeback as another term as Israel's prime minister. And here's what the transcripts indicate. So Jacobin cleaned up Epstein's strange punctuation for the purposes of clarity. I wanted to give you that warning, but here's what the emails indicate. Epstein says, I'm dealing with Ehud Barak in Israel, making me crazy. Bannon responds, Ehud, massive. Can we announce I'm his strategic advisor?
So Bannon can't wait to work with the Israelis and make some money off of that. Interesting to note from Mr. America First.
Bannon also has hours and hours of footage from his interview with Epstein that's never been released.
Why hasn't it been released, Steve? That's awfully strange. I mean, you're complaining about the Epstein files being released. You have your own Epstein files. Why don't you release all of them unedited and let's see what Epstein was up to? By the way, also your conversations with Epstein. Oh, but you don't want to release those. Interesting.
So the conversation continues. Again, this is over email. Epstein says this will be a long campaign. Elections in September 17th. Lots to talk about. Bannon responds with, this is brilliant move. So let me give you one more part of their exchange. Epstein says, thanks, only the first step. Now you can understand why Trump wakes up in the middle of the night sweating when he hears you and I are friends. Bannon responds, dangerous. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what dangerous means. I guess he's referring to himself and Epstein being a dangerous combo. but against Trump. So Steve Bannon really has a lot of explaining to do here.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. So look, I think that Megyn Kelly's take on all of this is interesting. So Ehud Barak's connections to Epstein became a huge scandal for the prime minister after Epstein's arrest in 2019. Netanyahu capitalized on that scandal to bring down Ehud Barak's run for prime minister. Now let's fast forward to present day, where Megyn Kelly responded to Netanyahu's post, posting that Jacobin piece. So I guess it's not anti-Semitic to ask if Epstein was an asset for Israeli intel, and we shouldn't just take Ehud Barak's word for it that he wasn't. Got it. Yeah, correct. They're gonna call you an anti-Semite anyway, Megyn Kelly. Like, they're gonna call you an anti-Semite unless you toe the line perfectly and support anything and everything Israel does without asking any questions. Now, if you're willing to do that, great, you won't be called an anti-Semite. But if you're willing to ask questions as someone who purports to be a journalist, as someone who cares about the facts, the truth, yeah, you're gonna be called an anti-Semite. And you know what you should do with that claim, which is complete and utter BS? Brush it off your shoulder and move on.
And actually report the truth, but half the time she seems like she's covering up for Epstein.
She's straddling, not for Epstein, but for Israel. She does a lot of that.
Yeah, like, the Epstein girls, were they was it really pedophilia?
Oh yeah, that was bad.
I mean, why are we doing that? Epstein's already dead. I mean, it's not like I don't think she has any connections to Ghislaine Maxwell. My guess is that Megyn Kelly was trying to minimize that as part of a coordinated effort. Alan Dershowitz did the same thing when debating Anna on counterpoints. And so I think that there's a Israeli talking point. Start to minimize what Epstein did because people are finding out we did it. And so if Megyn's putting out those talking points and they're calling her an anti-Semite anyway, she should really check her strategy because it isn't that great. That straddling isn't working for anyone, Megyn.
Now, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett responded to Megyn Kelly in a quote post. So let's take a look at that. He says that the greatest propaganda attack. Remember, Israel's supposed to continue pretending as though Epstein had nothing to do with their government, even though there's now evidence that he absolutely did have a lot to do with their government.
I have more on that too.
Yeah, let me continue with his statement though. He says, until this moment, Netanyahu has not deleted the disgraceful post in which he shares an article that promotes the false conspiracy theory as if Israel and the Mossad operated the pedophile Epstein. Key media figures and influencers in the US and around the world are now relying on Netanyahu to lend legitimacy to lies against Israel and against, no one is making claims against Jews. Okay, you're making that up. Okay, these are claims about Epstein's relationship with a foreign government, and that's the government of Israel. No one said a damn thing about Jews, but they love to put that in there so anyone who questions Israel or their conduct is automatically thought of as an anti-Semite, and I reject that, but let me continue. He also says that Netanyahu is directly harming Israel's security and the security of Jews around the world. Well, Naftali Bennett, why don't you actually respond to the specific reporting that's come out? Several different reports showing that Epstein negotiated all sorts of deals on behalf of Israel. In fact, as the bloodshed was ongoing in Syria, Epstein hit up Ehud Barak and was like, yo, how about some war profiteering? There's a money-making opportunity here. Also reported by Dropsite News. Disgusting. Cenk, take it away.
Yeah, so I want you to understand what an enormous figure Epstein was inside Israel, and I'm gonna prove it to you. So you see him in the emails where the former prime minister, Ehud Barak, is kind of pleading with him to help him. But wait a minute, and you see so many other figures beseeching Jeffrey Epstein, and it makes sense because then you see him setting up a meeting with Vladimir Putin, the Mongolians randomly, etc., trying to procure cyber weapons for Israel. So he's this enormously powerful, pivotal player within Israel circles, and even former prime ministers and spies are beseeching Epstein. Okay. But remember, Epstein is not a public figure. It's not like he has media sway in Israel,
right?
And so he could affect the population or anything along those lines. No, he has enough power within the Israeli government that even former prime ministers come to him for help. Having nothing to do with media or public figures or the population. So he is unquestionably enormously connected to the Israeli government. So what are his goals? You see it all over the emails, both Epstein's emails and Ehud Barak's emails. His goals are to get America to bomb Syria for Israel, then to bomb Iran for Israel, then to procure cyber weapons for Israel. To say that he is not connected to Israel is to lie to you, unmitigated lie. And in fact, when someone tells you that Epstein is not connected to Israel, understand that that person is working for Israel. Now they might know it or not know it. They might be part of ABC or CNN, and they don't consciously, some of them consciously think it, but most of them don't. If you ask them, they'd be like, oh, that's outrageous. What do you mean I work for Israel? And then you say, well, you see all of this evidence proving without a shadow, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Epstein worked with the Israeli government and for the Israeli government. And they will say to you, no, you're not allowed to say that because that is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But all of Israel's discussing it, so it can't be anti-Semitic. And Netanyahu and Naftali Bennett are discussing it, right? So how could it be that Israelis are allowed to discuss that issue, but the Americans are all banned? And why are we banned? What does it mean to be banned? Because that same reporter will then write a story about you if you say things that are true, and will try to cancel your career. And they'll say, oh, anti-Semitic, Jew hater, conspiracy theorist, cancel them, outrageous radicals. They should never be allowed to work in media. They're hateful, they're bigots, right? Well then, brother, you're not a reporter. You're a literal propagandist for Israel, whether you know it or you don't. So, and I love Drop Site News for revealing all of this. Great work by Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill and everybody at Drop Site News, brilliant work. Now, I don't know about and I don't know the contours of Epstein's deal with Israel, right? So I can't tell you, oh yeah, he went and talked to Mossad agent X and they came up with a plan to rape American underage girls and use that as leverage and blackmail, etc. That we don't have yet, okay? We're clear about it. But did he work with Israel and have an enormous amount of power within Israel and its government and do all of these deals on behalf of Israel so they get cyber weapons, America dragged into war, etc.? No question. That is proven now beyond any doubt. So Epstein definitely worked with Israel. Anyone telling you otherwise is lying to you on behalf of Israel.
Listen, when I'm on Counterpoints and I'm in a 2v1 debate with two Zionists, Josh Hammer and Alan Dershowitz, and both of them do not want the release of the Epstein files. That should tell you something.
No question. We'll put it up on tyt.com/press. You should watch that.
Yeah.
Because both of them, as Israel first as it gets, both Dershowitz and Josh Hammer.
Dershowitz pretends like he wants the release of the Epstein files, but namely because he wants to attack the survivors. He doesn't even hide that.
Yeah, I know. Throughout the entire interview, Anna didn't have to do much. She did great, but they revealed themselves total mask off. Dershowitz is like, I want the files released so we can get the names of the victims, and there should be lawsuits against them. Okay, he says some of them, not all of them, but some of them. Oh, the accusations are unacceptable. And he pretends like that. People who are trying to protect the victims are being McCarthyite against who? The poor perpetrators. And he says everybody who palled around with Epstein and loved Epstein and said they're not all guilty. Now some of them are guilty, but a lot of them are wonderful human beings protecting beloved Israel. And the victims should be attacked with lawsuits, and they should none will get them. Like, I mean, you watch the interview. It's obvious they hate the idea of these Epstein files being released. Why? Because they're looking to protect Israel. And that's why Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro were like, don't release the Epstein files. And then once Trump turned around on it, they were like, oh, okay, it's cleaned up. Yeah, it's okay, you can release them now. It's so obvious, turned around on a dime. Look, these Israel first people go pound sand, okay? And we have to get rid of every person connected to Epstein in our government, because our government is supporting this vile stuff right now. Look, they're the ones who gave him a sweetheart deal. They're the ones who killed the camera, made the guards go off break. There are still traitors inside our government that helped do God knows what with Epstein in that jail cell, that helped to get him off. Why did they do that? Who do they work for? They certainly don't work for America, and very, very, very likely they work for Israel. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings.
Totally not true. But it does keep you updated on our live shows.